Today we are going to be doing a yeast washing tutorial, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to rack my beer from my fermenter over into my bottling bucket, and then I'm going to use the yeast cake on the bottom of the fermenter and essentially get the yeast out of it and be able to reuse it for a different batch. So what I'm doing is boiling some water to sterilize it, and I'm going to put this in a few glass jars that I have sterilizing in the sink, and then I'm going to have to cap it and let it cool down before I pour it into the yeast cake. So I'm going to go ahead and take this now and dump it into the glass jars so that we can put it in the fridge to cool down. So I just used Star San to sanitize the two glass jars that I have here, and I made sure that they were nice and clean. Now I'm going to go ahead and take the boiling water and I'm going to dump it into each one. This will help sterilize the rest of the glass jars, the edges, and I dump a little bit over top of them as well to kill any bugs. And we're going to take the lids that were also being sanitized in Star San, and we're just going to cap these. And then we're going to go ahead and put them in the fridge. Now whenever you put them into the refrigerator, be careful because they're going to be super hot. So I use an oven mitt, and I'm just going to go ahead and take them and pop them into the refrigerator. And I put them on oven mitts just to make sure that they don't, melt the plastic inside, and let them cool down. Now that the water's cooled down, we can add it to the bucket. And we're just going to dump it in. And remember, this is cooled down now because we have yeast in the bucket, and if we dumped the hot water in there, it could potentially kill the yeast, so we want to make sure that we cool it down. After we do that, we're just going to pop the lid on, swirl it around a bit, and then we're going to let this sit for about 20 minutes, and that's going to allow a lot of the trub to settle down, but the yeast will still stay in suspension. Okay, so it's been about 20 minutes. Now we are going to take our racking cane and we're going to rack the liquid on top of the trub into our jar that we have. This is a little tricky, so I like to tip the bucket over. It makes it a little bit easier. Now as you can see, as I'm transferring it, if you look up at the top there where the bucket and the liquid starts, you can see that darker brown layer, and that's the trub. We want to keep the racking cane above that and just get this milky layer into the first can. Now after we get it into the jar, we're going to sit it here and we're going to let it rest for another 20 minutes. And as you can see, it creates three different layers. Top layer is liquid. The middle layer there, that milky white consistency, that's all the yeast that we want to get. And then the bottom is all the dead yeast that settled out. So we want to focus on getting that out there, and we can simply do that by pouring off the top and then pouring the rest of that into the jar and leaving behind the dead yeast. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. So I already poured the liquid off the top of the yeast that we want. Now I'm going to pour that into this jar. And if you do this slowly, you shouldn't need to rack it or anything like that. Just slowly pour it in. Leave that gunk behind. That's all dead yeast. Now we're going to cap this, and we're going to put it in the refrigerator. Now whenever we put this in the fridge, it's going to make the yeast go to sleep. They're all going to settle out to the bottom. And whenever you're ready to pitch this, I'll show you what it looks like and I'll explain what to do. Now as you can see, all the yeast has settled down to the bottom and we just have the liquid on top. Whenever we're ready to use this again, all we're going to do is take it out of the fridge and let it warm up to room temperature. And then we just need to pour the liquid off the top and just leave a little bit behind, shake it up real good, and then we can use that to make our starter. And we want to do that, of course, a a couple days in advance of our actual brew day, so that our starter's ready to go whenever we're ready to use it. And it's as simple as that. It's a pretty easy step. I could have split it into a couple different jars. You just need to make sure you step up your starter a couple times if you do that instead of just once. But I'll probably use this in a 2-liter starter, and it will be good to go for a 5-gallon batch. And as always, thanks for watching Brew Tutorials.